I wish it were me. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because the walls of that elevator were pressing in on me. Maybe because his cologne was dizzying. Maybe because I had carried those words inside me for too long. But the second they slipped from my lips, I knew I could never take them back, because he turned. The CEO. The man I had spent 2 years working under without ever daring to dream of more. The man who, in less than an hour, was supposed to stand at an altar and promise forever to someone else. And now, here we were, trapped between floors, suspended in silence. My heart thundering louder than the grinding of the lift cables. Awful, isn't it? To be caught between wanting the walls to open so I could run and hide, and wanting time to freeze so I could stay here with him forever. But the cruelest part? It wasn't shock on his face. It wasn't disgust. No, it was something far worse. Something that made my skin heat and my breath falter. Desire. I should back up. My name is Elena and I was late. That's all this was supposed to be. A frantic sprint through the glass lobby of Dawson Tower, heels clicking against marble, clutching the portfolio I needed to deliver before his wedding whisked him away. He wasn't supposed to be there. He never used this entrance, never took this lift. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. The doors slid shut, and I looked up into the kind of eyes you can drown in. Steel gray, sharp enough to cut through excuses, deep enough to hold secrets. Ethan Dawson, my boss, my untouchable. We didn't speak at first, just the faint hum of machinery, the awkward awareness of proximity. His tuxedo was tailored so precisely I could see the rise and fall of his chest with each steady breath. His tie wasn't yet fastened, his cufflinks undone. Like the groom had stepped away from perfection for one stolen moment of air. And then the elevator jolted. Hard. My bag slipped from my shoulder, papers spilling across the floor like startled. "Bertz, are you all right?" His voice was low, rich threaded with something that made the fine hairs at my nape lift. I nodded, too quickly, crouching to gather my things. But my fingers trembled, and his hand reached down at the same time as mine. Warmth, contact, electricity that zipped up my arm and left me frozen. That's when I made the mistake of looking up. His gaze locked on mine, and the world outside that elevator ceased to exist. Sorry, I stammered, pulling back, clutching papers like armor. He straightened slowly, studying me as though I were more than an assistant, more than a shadow. In his empire. And in the dim glow of the lift's emergency light I saw it, the weight in his expression. Not nerves, not excitement. Doubt. The lift groaned, still stuck. He pressed the emergency button, cursed under his breath, then leaned back against the mirrored wall with a sigh that sounded like surrender. I should have stayed silent. I should have prayed for rescue, but instead words clawed up my throat, reckless and raw. "Are you sure you want this?" His eyes snapped open. "What?" "This wedding. This forever." Silence thickened between us. My pulse pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. And then, with a softness that unraveled me, he whispered, "I don't know. It should have ended there." A pause, a shift, a rescue breaking the spell. But no. The quiet stretched, our reflections shimmering. In the glass around us, the air charged and unrelenting, and I, weak, foolish human, I let my truth slip out. Bare, unguarded, trembling. I wish it were me. The confession hung like smoke, impossible to pull back. His gaze burned into me, disbelief warring with something darker, needier. He pushed off the wall, closing the space between us until every nerve in my body screamed. His hand hovered, not quite touching my cheek, his breath mingling with mine. "Elena," my name was a warning. Or maybe a plea. The lift groaned again, shaking us from the brink. I stepped back, my lungs desperate for air, my heart desperate for him. And just like that, the doors stayed shut, trapping us in a purgatory where time, bent and rules blurred. The bride waited somewhere above. But here in this suspended cage of steel and secrets, I was the one he looked at like he was already mine. He didn't move. Neither did I. The hum of silence inside that elevator was deafening, thick with every unspoken word between us. His wedding was minutes away. My confession still echoed against the mirrored walls. And yet, neither of us reached for the emergency phone again. Neither of us wanted to break whatever this was. His gaze lingered on me, sharp, searching. Why would you say that? I swallowed hard. My throat was desert dry. Because it's the truth. There it was, out in the open, a blade between us, gleaming, dangerous. He exhaled, slow and shaky, his shoulders rising then falling like he carried the weight of 1,000 decisions. He stepped closer, not enough to touch but enough to make the air quake between us. You shouldn't. His voice was rough, frayed at the edges. You shouldn't want that. I know. My lips curved into a bitter smile. But knowing doesn't change it. The emergency light flickered, painting his face in shadows and gold. For the first time in years of watching him stride through boardrooms with effortless power, I saw him stripped bare, vulnerable, torn. A man, not a CEO. A groom who wasn't sure if the altar waiting upstairs was salvation or a cage. He pressed, his hand to the wall above me, leaning in, not quite touching but close enough that his scent, cedar, spice, something warm and devastating, wrapped around me like a noose. Do you have any idea what you've just done to me? He whispered. My heart slammed against my ribs. Maybe the same thing you've always done to me. His jaw flexed, his eyes flickering down to my lips for just 1 second too long. It was a look I had dreamed of, but never dared to believe. The cables above creaked, jolting us. I stumbled and his arm shot out, steadying me by the waist. Heat exploded through me at his touch. His palm lingered, his fingers tightening for the briefest of moments before he forced himself to release me. God, he muttered, dragging his hand through his dark hair, silver at the temples catching the dim light. This is insane. Insane. Yes, that was the word, and yet I didn't want sanity, not now, not when his handprint still burned against my skin. Maybe, I whispered. But maybe it's the only honest thing in this whole day. His eyes closed, just for a second, like the weight of those words pierced deeper than I intended. When they opened again, he studied me with something raw, something forbidden, something I wanted to bottle and keep forever. Elena, he said softly, if I start this, I won't be able to stop. I froze, breath caught in my lungs. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out reason, drowning out fear. Then don't start, I murmured, though every fiber in me ached for him to ignore me, to break every rule and every vow he hadn't yet spoken. But his control was iron, his self-restraint legendary. He stepped back, dragging air between us like a barrier. The silence that followed was worse than the temptation. It was heavy, suffocating. I leaned against the mirrored wall, trying to steady my breath, my thoughts. I caught my reflection, wide eyes, flushed cheeks. A woman undone by proximity alone. He cleared his throat, straightening his cuffs as though grasping at control. She doesn't deserve this, he muttered under his breath. Not to me, to himself. But I heard it. And it stung more than I expected. Neither do you, I whispered. His eyes flicked to mine again as though those 4 words lodged under his skin. And then, another jolt. The lift shifted, groaned, then stilled again. The momentary sway threw me forward, straight into his chest. His arms wrapped around me instinctively, firm and grounding. For a heartbeat, just one heartbeat, I let myself sink into him. The rise and fall of his chest, the thunder of his pulse against my cheek, the warmth that seeped through the layers of tuxedo and silk. I could have stayed there forever. But he pulled back slowly, reluctantly, his hands gliding down my arms before falling away entirely, his eyes locked onto mine, burning with what he wouldn't say. Elena. My name again, softer this time. Dangerous. Yes? My voice barely carried. I can't. He broke off, pressing his fist to his mouth like the words were poison. Then with a ragged exhale he whispered, "But I want to." The admission cracked me open. My breath hitched, my body humming, with equal parts longing and fear. Before I could respond, a loud crack echoed above us. The lights flickered, the elevator lurched violently, and we both grabbed for the railing. It steadied, but my heart didn't. We stared at each other, breathless, suspended not just between floors but between choices. And in his eyes, I saw it. Not just desire, not just conflict, but the terrifying truth. If fate kept us trapped here much longer, no, the cables moaned again and the lights above us flickered. It was as if the building itself conspired to keep us here, locked in this fragile, impossible moment. My pulse hadn't slowed since the first jolt. Every second with him was fire pressed to my skin. We stood at opposite ends of the small space now, like predators circling, pretending distance could tame the hunger in our eyes. "I should hate you for saying that," he muttered, gaze fixed on the floor. "And yet you don't." My voice came out steadier than I felt. Even as my hands shook around the folder I still clutched like it could shield me from the truth. His head lifted sharply, steel gray eyes finding mine. The intensity in them pinned me, raw and unguarded. "You think you know me?" I swallowed. "I know enough to see you don't want this marriage." He let out a harsh laugh, shaking his head. "It's not that simple." "Isn't it?" I challenged, stepping closer without realizing it, as if my body betrayed me. "If you don't want it, why go through with it?" "Because sometimes," he said, voice low, dangerous, "wanting something doesn't mean you can have it." The words hung between us, a confession and a warning all at once. I froze, every nerve lit, because I knew he wasn't talking about the bride anymore. He was talking about me. My breath shuddered out. I wanted to be brave, to close the space, to demand he choose what was real instead of what was expected. But fear held me still. It was him who moved first. One step, then another, until his presence crowded me back against the mirrored wall. His reflection stared back at me, flushed cheeks, parted lips, wide eyes, and beside it, his, controlled, fierce, undone all at once. He lifted his hand slowly, giving me every chance to stop him, to turn away, but I didn't. I couldn't. His palm cupped my cheek, thumb brushing the line of my jaw with a tenderness that made my chest ache. "Elena," he whispered, and my name sounded like both a prayer and a sin. The world narrowed to the warmth of his touch, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the dangerous tilt of his body toward mine. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, his breath ghosting against my lips. "Please, just tell me once and I'll walk out of here and marry her like nothing ever happened." But I couldn't. My voice refused. My heart had other plans. Instead, my hand lifted, trembling, and pressed against his chest. His heart thundered beneath my palm, wild and desperate, a mirror of my own. "I can't," I whispered. His eyes darkened, and then he closed the distance. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was 2 years of restraint, breaking in a single moment. Fierce, aching, hungry. His lips claimed mine, and I melted, every bone dissolving until only sensation remained. His hand slid to the back of my neck, pulling me closer, deepening the kiss until I thought I might drown in it. I clutched his tuxedo, terrified he'd vanish, terrified he wouldn't. The taste of him was everything I had dreamed and more. Heat, longing, desperation wound into one. When he finally tore his mouth from mine, his forehead rested against mine, breaths ragged, hearts colliding in the narrow space between us. "This is wrong," he said hoarsely. "God, it's wrong." Then, "Why does it feel like the only thing that's right?" I whispered back. His hand slid down my arm, fingers threading through mine. He squeezed hard as though grounding himself. His eyes blazed with a storm I couldn't name. And then, like the universe itself was jealous, the elevator groaned, and with a sudden lurch, it jerked into motion. We stumbled, clutching each other, caught between passion and reality. The floor numbers lit up above us, 28, 29, 30, the countdown to his vows, the countdown to my heartbreak. He pulled back, chest heaving, eyes tortured. "I can't give you what you want. You already have," I breathed. "Whether you meant to or not," the bell chimed. The doors began to open. Light flooded in, harsh and blinding. His hand slipped from mine like it burned him. His mask, polished, powerful, untouchable, slid back into place. And just like that, the man who kissed me like I was oxygen stepped out into the world as a groom again. But as the doors closed on me, I saw it. The smallest hesitation, I should have left the building, walked out, hailed a cab, and let the elevator doors close on the single most dangerous moment of my life. But instead, I followed. My heels echoed down the marble corridor, my heart a runaway drum in my chest. I told myself I was just delivering the portfolio. That was my excuse. But really, I couldn't bear to let him disappear into vows and white lace without something, without knowing. The ballroom was chaos. Flowers in glass vases, gold chairs aligned in perfect rows, photographers circling like vultures. The murmur of guests drifted from the far side of the hall, a tide of anticipation, and in the middle of it, him. Ethan Dawson, groom, CEO, mine for 5 stolen minutes in a broken elevator. He was surrounded by people, friends, family, assistants adjusting his tie, pressing his cufflinks into place, smoothing his jacket. He looked the part again. Polished. Untouchable. But I saw the tiny tremor in his hand as he accepted a glass of water, the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes kept scanning the room as though searching for me. When his gaze finally landed, it was like a current shot through us both. His chest rose sharply. His lips parted. For a second, I thought he'd come toward me, but then his best man clapped him on the back, dragging his attention away, and the moment broke. I gripped the folder tighter, nails biting into the leather. This was insane. I was insane. And yet my feet kept moving, carrying me closer until I stood at the edge of the chaos, invisible but too close to be safe. I should have turned around. Instead, he found me again. His eyes locked onto mine, sharp and desperate, and suddenly the room fell away. There were no flowers, no guests, no waiting bride. Only us. He excused himself with a murmur I couldn't hear, and cut through the crowd with that commanding stride, until he was standing in front of me, just close enough that I could see the storm behind his calm facade. "What are you doing here?" His voice was low, urgent, almost angry. I lifted the folder with shaking hands. "Delivering this." He didn't even look at it. His eyes burned into mine. "You should have gone home." "I tried," I whispered, throat tight. "But I couldn't." Something in him fractured. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair like a man unraveling. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to me?" "Yes." My voice trembled. "Do you?" The weight of silence pressed down on us. Then, without warning, his hand caught mine and tugged me down the nearest corridor, away from the guests, The cameras, the expectations. We stumbled into a side room, dark, quiet, the faint scent of lilies in the air. He closed the door, locked it, and leaned back against it like he was holding the whole world out. And then he looked at me, not like a boss, not like a groom, but like a man on the edge of surrender. "I can't marry her," he said, voice breaking, though words hit me like a blow. My breath left me in a rush. "But you will," I whispered, because reality was crueler than his confession. He shook his head, stepping closer, until my back met the wall, and there was nowhere left to go. "No. Not when I can't stop thinking about you. Not when one kiss in an elevator feels more real than anything I've had in years." My hands shook as he framed my face between his palms. His eyes searched mine, pleading, daring. "This isn't just attraction, Elena. It's you. It's always been you." The dam inside me broke. My hands fisted in his jacket, pulling him down to me, and his mouth crashed onto mine again. This kiss was different. Not frantic like the first. This one was desperate, consuming, like a man drowning who had finally found air. He kissed me with everything he wasn't supposed to feel, and I kissed him back with everything I'd never been brave enough to admit. His body pressed to mine, solid, unyielding, yet trembling at the edges. His hand slid down my arms, gripping my waist as if to anchor himself. I gasped against his lips, and he deepened the kiss, groaning softly like he couldn't hold it in anymore. I should have stopped him, stopped myself. But the truth was, I didn't want to. Not now. Not ever. When he finally tore his mouth from mine, his forehead rested against mine, both of us gasping, both undone. "I'm supposed to be walking down an aisle right now," he whispered, voice hoarse. "But all I can think about is how much I want to walk out of here with you instead." Tears stung my eyes, hot and unforgiving. "Then do it," I breathed. "Choose me." The sound of distant music swelled from the ballroom, the opening notes of the bridal march. Reality pounded on the locked door. His eyes closed, pain etched across his face. "God help me, Elena. I don't know if I'm strong enough." And, in that moment, with the music rising, with his confession still burning between us, I realized something terrifying. If he didn't make a choice now, fate would make it. The ballroom music swelled like a tide, relentless and unavoidable. Somewhere behind the locked door, guests shifted, anticipating a bride's entrance, a life perfectly planned. But here, in the shadows, it was just him and me, two hearts threatening to shatter or soar. Ethan pressed his forehead against mine again, breathing ragged, eyes wide with a storm I could feel in my own chest. "Elena," he whispered, voice raw, trembling with the weight of everything he'd held back. "Yes," I breathed. "Whatever it takes, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." His hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing over the corner of my lips, over the place where his first kiss had left me aching. "You don't understand what this means. I'm supposed to be married in less than an hour. Everything is set. My life. It's planned. And yet..." His lips brushed mine again, featherlight, testing, desperate. "And yet I've never wanted anything as much as I want you." The words crashed into me like a wave, and I let myself fall into him surrendering, my hands tangled in his jacket, pulling him closer, my body pressed against his as though I could fuse with him, become one heartbeat. He groaned softly, a sound that shook me more than any touch. His hands slid down to my waist, and I felt the strength there, the man who carried empires and expectations melting into the man who had wanted me all along. "Tell me it's okay," he murmured against my lips. "Tell me you want this too." "I do," I whispered, voice trembling. "I've wanted this, wanted you, forever." The confession hung between us, hotter than the summer air, heavier than the gold chandeliers and polished marble floors. He pressed his mouth to mine again, slower this time, lingering, savoring, tasting the truth we'd both been denying. Time ceased. There was no clock ticking, no bridal march calling, no expectations. Only the heat between us, the rapid rise and fall of our chests, and the undeniable reality. We were caught in something too powerful to ignore. He pulled back slightly, just enough to look into my eyes, and I saw every fear, every desire, every moment of hesitation reflected there. And then, as though releasing the last shackle of control, he whispered, "I don't care about the wedding, I don't care about anything but you." My breath hitched. "Then stay with me, stay here, forget everything else." He laughed, low and broken, a sound that made the hairs on my arms rise. I think I was waiting for you to say that." We were both shaking now, hands clutching, lips brushing, hearts pounding. His forehead rested against mine, our breaths mingling, and the weight of the world seemed to collapse around us. And then he did something I didn't expect. He kissed me like it was our first and our last moment, like he was memorizing me, claiming me, and promising me all at once. His hands moved to my back, cradling me, anchoring me as though we were the only two people in existence. "I love you," he whispered finally, voice raw, urgent, impossible to ignore. "I've always loved you, I couldn't say it until now." The words wrapped around me, tight and warm, and I felt something inside me shift, break, and rebuild all at once. "I love you too," I breathed, tears spilling freely. "More than anything." The door shook suddenly, a reminder of reality pressing back. Guests waiting, vows about to be exchanged, the life he had planned. But neither of us moved. Neither of us let go. "I don't care," he murmured. "Let them wait. Let the world wait. You're the only thing I can't live without." And in that moment, I knew we had crossed the line. Not in sin, not in scandal, but in truth. In the purest, most desperate honesty either of us had ever known. He kissed me again, slower now, tender, savoring the surrender, the intimacy, the confession that had finally been allowed to exist. My fingers traced the line of his jaw, memorizing the warmth, the rough edges, the man behind the empire. Time passed. Or maybe it didn't. All I knew was the ache, the tremble, the undeniable connection that made me certain of one thing. Nothing could ever be the same. And I didn't want it to be. Finally, we pulled back slightly, foreheads touching, breaths mingling. The tension, the longing, the fear, it all hung between us like the faint hum of a promise. "I don't care what happens after this," he whispered, eyes glittering with unshed tears. "As long as you're with me. Always." "I'm with you," I said, voice steady, though my chest shook. Always. The elevator, the corridor, the wedding, they were all irrelevant now. We had found something real, something untouchable, in the middle of chaos and expectation, and for the first time in our lives we were free.